Hi, everybody. Jay Privman, the national correspondent with Daily Racing Form. Mike Watchmaker, the national handicapper with Daily Racing Form, joins me as we take a look at not one, not two, but three stakes races this weekend that could impact our Derby Watch Top 20. And Mike, to me, this is an odd week because even though there are a number of races that could impact the top 20, there's not a lot of action here in terms of horses that we, to this point, have thought are significant runners. But let's start with the first of these three races that'll be run. It's the UAE Derby, run halfway around the world. One horse on our list, Epicharis, making his first start outside of Japan. How do you assess his form coming into this race, and what are your expectations for him on Saturday?
Well, he's undefeated, Jay, and he got the job done in his 3-year-old bow, and he's taking the Lanny course to the Kentucky Derby, and it got Lanny to the Derby last year, and maybe it'll get Epicharis, if that's how you say it, to the dance this year. He's done some interesting things. I mean, I'm still trying to get over the fact that as a 2-year-old in August, he dispatched a giant field going 1 1/8 miles. I mean, that's crazy stuff for a 2-year-old, something that we just don't see in this country. But I have a policy. I mean, and someday I'll be proven wrong, but I'm going to stick to it until I am. The first horse out of the UAE Derby to win the Kentucky Derby is going to cost me. He'll be at my expense. And so even if Epicharis wins the UAE Derby and comes to Kentucky, which is not a given, but I think if he wins, he probably would. I'm gonna lean against him anyway, only because it has yet to prove a successful path to Churchill Downs.
Well, one thing that I liked about this horse, Mike, is that I thought he won nicely in his first race in Japan. He's obviously got talent, being 4 for 4, and I'm going to go to school on this race on Saturday because instead of being an intramural squabble that we've seen him running so far in his homeland, he's now going to run against an international field. And this, to me, will be a real test as to where he stacks up in this year's Derby. And we'll learn whether or not this is a horse to take seriously or if he's just another horse who has maybe had a chance to prove himself and yet disappointed, which is something we've seen a lot of so far this spring on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Now, also on Saturday is the Spiral Stakes at Turfway. And even though this has a big field, Mike, there's not one horse in this race who's currently on our top 20, but most likely the winner will be on our top 20 next week because there's 50 points to the winner, and that's going to put the winner of this race into the field. But just overall, what are your thoughts on this field this year in the Spiral?
Well, I've just started digging into it, Jay, looking at the PPs, and it's what we basically come to expect of Spiral fields. It's a hodgepodge of horses that have spent the winter at Turfway and horses that have run on turf in different climes trying to win a big pot on Polytrack because, everybody knows that if you handle turf, you pretty much can transfer that form to Polytrack. So, that said, don't get excited about the horses that are shipping in from Florida and Southern California because they're not exactly barn burners. Like you said, nobody in this big Spiral field has impressed us enough, even remotely enough, to be considered for inclusion on the Derby watch list. And, but Ken Ramsey has a horse in this race. And if this horse runs well, that come hell or high water, he'll be in the starting gate come Kentucky Derby day.
Yes, he'll be going to the Derby. Also on Sunday, Mike, is the Sunland Derby. The other two races we discussed are Saturday. The Sunland Derby is on Sunday. Not any real superstars in this field, but there is one horse in the race who's on our top 20, and it was kind of a leap of faith. It's a horse named Bronze Age, trained by Bob Baffert, won a maiden race in Southern California, and I kind of lobbied for his inclusion this week because I fully expect him to win the race, and if he does, he'll have enough points, 50 to the winner, to go on to the Kentucky Derby. What I like about him is that in his last race, he beat 2 horses who have subsequently come back and won, and I really liked his last workout last weekend. But you have a little bit of a different take on him and that last win.
Well, I'm just a little bit concerned, Jay, about the quality of performances of those 2 next out winners that Bronze Age beat. The runner-up in that race came back and fell off 9 buyer points when he won. And the third place finisher came back and won on turf, not on dirt, which is the race the Bronze Age won, but on turf. And he got the exact same buyer that he got finishing third at the Bronze Age. So I think there's some concern about how valid the 93 buyer that Bronze Age got in his maiden win. But he's a lightly raced horse. He has every right to improve. He's certainly in excellent hands. He's trained by Bob Baffert. And at this point, Baffert's probably desperately looking for some sort of Derby starter because what was once a very strong hand of his has seemed to have fallen apart.
Certainly so, with Mastery being injured and American Anthem running poorly in the Rebel last weekend. Well, that is our look at the 3 stakes this weekend that should impact our Derby Watch 20. Also here at drf.com, you'll find our recap of last week's Rebel Stakes. For Mike Watchmaker, I'm Jay Privman. Thanks for watching.